It's running? All right, let's see what we can do here. Thank you, folks. I'll see you later.
And we're off to the races. Do I take the track or do I get up onto this road? And I decided I would go ahead and get on the road, a little bit easier going, if slightly longer. And then we come off onto the track here and cross the stream. And we'll basically just follow this track along. And as you look, you'll see that this area had suffered from some of the wildfires we had last fall. And we'll see some areas that are completely unburnt next to ones that are not. And it's literally a trail or track is acting as a fire break. So it's a very evocative environment. And I do understand that brush fires actually, as long as they're not too intense, are an important part of the ecological system. So it's kind of cool experiencing that. Okay, we've come to some intersections. I'm going to follow this one up over a little creek, as they say in upstate New York, a creek. And then sort of navigate up the hill a bit and with these rocks, and we'll find the control at the base of one of them. And here we go. Okay. Next step, we're going to have to move through a fair amount of undergrowth, which is really annoying and frustrating. And if you, the viewer, are frustrated that we have a chest-mounted camera today, and I get that, rather than the over-the-shoulder, as I was moving through this, I was relieved I didn't have the over-the-shoulder camera rig, because it would have been getting caught on all of this stuff. And it was hard enough to maneuver through this without something sticking up just above my head. All right, onto the trail, and we're going to grab this fork. I deliberately aimed off. When we get to the fork, we're going to go low, and then constantly look up the hill until we see what we're looking for, which is a control amongst these rocks. And we break off the trail, and there it is, right at the base of that boulder. Hooray! Okay, it's time to head on out. And this time, we're going to really work off a bearing for the most part, but we have that stone wall to the left to handrail off of. And when you're moving on along the side of a hill like this, gravity's in force, so there's a tendency to pull downhill. So I'm working to fight this as I go along. And we'll move past these rocks, which we can see on the map, both the sort of cliffs and all that. And we come down to the stone wall now, and we're going to more or less handrail it, because at the very end is the control that we want. And then we'll actually almost step over it, because we're trying to find areas that doesn't have too much undergrowth. And there we go.
Don't give it away.
Right. This one's a fairly long leg, and we're going to do a bit of a think of should we follow this track up and use it, or should we go overland, and kind of waste of time in a way, spending too much time thinking. But we're going to take the track for a bit and then get off the track and sort of back on and move along it for a bit. So we're really kind of torn, if you will, emotionally between no underbrush or rocks or that, but you have to go farther, or do you cut through? And now we're going to come off that track and basically take a bearing to this open area. Lily Pond. And then the question then becomes, do we confirm our location by using the trail intersection just off of it, or do we just boogie straight across on our bearing? And we're going to basically boogie here. And now we're going to have to crash through this stuff. And onto the track. And then we're going to follow it. And then as we come to this intersection, we'll come off the track. Now, here's where I have to admit I'm a bit muddled, because we're going to see a stone wall, and I believe this is a stone wall we're seeing on the map. But something went wrong. So there's a possibility I'm actually further to the right even now from where I think. And we're looking to go on a bearing and also to catch the stone wall as we cross it as kind of a heads up, and also a trail. And we're going to miss these. So like I said, we may actually be off the map and not where I think we are. And as we go along, we're not seeing the track, we're not seeing the stone wall. So maybe even further to the right, as I said. And that's a reminder that when you see a stone wall, you might want to work out its bearing so that you are confirmed, like, yes, this is the stone wall. I think it is, and not one that's at 90 degrees to it. Well, I know I've overshot now. So I'm going to come down the hill and pick up the trail. Okay, looking at some poop on the ground, I believe. And, you know, once you lose adhesion, you get kind of worried. So we're really getting into kind of belt and suspenders mode here. We're going to stay on the track. We're not going to work our way up the hill. And then we come onto this, obviously once paved road, but it reads more as a track or a substantial trail. And then when we get to the top of the hill, we see we've got the stone wall and the trail. So we'll use the trail and move along it. And we're looking for that dried stream bed. And we work out that, like, ooh, maybe that was it. It's not very distinct. Some dried stream beds are very distinct. This one was not as distinct. But there's the control. So all good in the hood. All right. Time to have a think. There's no really good trail to use. You could drop all the way down and then work your way back up. But I'm going to go basically straight line. And I'm going to try and keep an eye on some of these boulders to use them to make sure I'm not pulling downhill. There's the boulders going past. Having a quick check. Check the compass and off we go. You can see there's some undergrowth. I was a bit concerned it might be even more challenging than it was. It's a really good map, but particularly undergrowth changes a lot from when you make a map from when you run a map. So we're going to come up onto the trail here. And now we're on the trail, and then we're going to read the trail and the bends. And so, like, okay, there's our attack point, and head in for the control, which we can now see. It was nice to have a good run after that previous disaster. Okay, this one's going to offer a kind of interesting challenge on how to approach it. And what I've decided on is to move up along the stone wall and to grab this substantial track. And now we're on the track and doing a quick map check. And we're going to move down through this underbrush. And we're looking at the boulders to either side to cue us onto where we are. Because the plan is, when we get to that boulder field, is to make a hard right and work our way up the hill to try and hopefully grab the control directly. And now we're moving up through all these rocks, New England potatoes as they were. And I'm thinking next time if I use a chest mount camera, I need to have the ability to tilt it. So when I'm leaning forward going up a hill, you can actually see what I'm seeing rather than just the ground. But we're up on top and we're going to grab this track. Not try and make a straight beeline. We're in belt and braces mode here, having had some mishaps. So it's like I want to be really careful. The track is a more reliable way to find the control than to crash through the brush and hopefully pick it up. So we come to this intersection and we make a right, and then we come down to this intersection and we make a right. So we're creating kind of like a cane handle effect to do something that's very reliable and spare ourselves. But no worries, we see the control here and we'll pop in and grab it. Right. Unfortunately, things are about to get worse, as it were. And that's why we have two circles. The blue represents where I think I am, and the red represents what's actually happening. Oh boy. So 180 degrees out, I'm on the right track, but I think I'm heading north, and I'm going to grab this intersection when actually I'm heading south, and I'm eventually going to grab an intersection, but then it's going to start to dawn on me what I've done. So there we are, 180 degrees out. I think I'm moving down this track. That is where the blue circle is. And now I come to this open area. Oh, aren't I doing well? And then I start seeing things I've seen before, because we're right by control 5. And I'm recognizing some stones and walls and other bits of topography. And I'm like, oh boy, we really blew it. Quick map check and all that. And now we're going to get back on that track we were on before and move up it. We've realized our mistake, so blue circle's gone, and we've added a whole bunch of distance and time to ourselves. So we'll handrail that stone wall, and now we're going to move up the same track we were on before when we're going for 6. So if it looks familiar to you, it's because you just saw it before, as I just did. Okay, the ability to recover from mistake is an important part of orienteering, so here we go. All right, now we're going to come up to this intersection, and that's going to be very helpful to know where we really are. But we're going to make, I think, is a mistake as I look back at this, because I'm going to head down and grab that other track rather than stay on the track I was on, which this downhill bit, a little bit tricky, and then I have increased the distance of travel. So there was no advantage for doing that beyond the view was nice. So that was definitely a mistake. I should have stayed on that right-hand track I was already on and gone for the intersection instead of doing what I did here. But we'll head on down, and then when we get to the intersection that confirms exactly where we are, here we are at the intersection. Quick map check. I'm going to move in down a bit, and then I'm going to cut left. And on the day, it was a little bit of a spiraling in as we've done, as it happens. But there's the control, and we're all set. Okay, well, that was the worst of the worst of it. This next one's going to be very easy. Back up onto the track, and we're heading towards a bridge. The bridge control is an important concept in planning orienteering events. If you don't want people crashing through, say, a bird sanctuary, which is illegal and morally problematic and a way of getting very wet feet, you put a control on the bridge, channeling people onto the bridge. So here we go. This is the last control we need. Okay, and now it's just a sort of home run, if you will, to the end, which is just beyond the tent where my friends are, and done. Okay, there's the results. I did not win it all, but I had an absolute blast, and I want to thank you, Western Connecticut Orienteering, for making this possible, and I want to thank you for joining us. And here is a little bit of reward, if you will, because afterwards I took some time to observe these beautiful birds in action.